Welcome back to another impactful night of the Impact Education Leadership. This is episode 98. I'm your host, ID3 for IZ on the Thursday night. Panelists are Freedom Smith, Jeanie, Delascasas, and the lovely Miss Nina Taylor. The lovely Miss Nina Taylor, please say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Wonderful. And Jeanie Delascasas, please say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone.
And Freedom Smith, please say hello to the people.
Hi, guys.
Well, tonight it's going to be on, but the word I'm hearing is determination. Determination. Tonight's topic is surviving as a single parent. Single parenting duties are no different from those for a married one, except that the parent is on their own. Statistics show some significant challenges for new single mothers, and we hope to give a few words of wisdom to help single mothers overcome them. Approximately 30% of single mothers reported symptoms of depression or anxiety, compared with just 14% of partnered mothers. In addition, a more significant proportion of single mothers reported high general stress levels of 37% and high parenting stress levels of 26%, compared with that of partnered mothers. Mental health professionals reported that 8.6% of African Americans suffer from social anxiety disorders, 4.9% from generalized anxiety disorders, and 3.8% from panic disorders. According to the CDC, African Americans have the highest rate of current depression at 12.8%, followed by Hispanics, 11.4%, and whites, 7.9%. More specifically, in African Americans, the most common mental illness disorder include major depression, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, suicide, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD for short. These anxieties and depression associations, councils of America have been coming up with strategies to help us manage these conditions in our community. Tonight, I want to bring on these special guests for me, who are, I would call, overcomers, who are more than conquerors, and who are determined women, people that have done above and beyond the call of duty. First, I want to pull on Freedom Smith. Freedom and I go back. Freedom, please say hello to the people and tell us a little bit about what you're doing. Freedom is a film producer and director, but anyway, I'll let her tell you.
Well, 5-6 years ago, I decided to do a complete career change. I had been in mortgage for 20-something years, and I just decided that, I'd reached the point where I was asking myself, well, what I want to do with the rest of my life, and I picked up an old dream of mine that I'd had and it left on the back burner, and I picked it up and I've been running with it. I've done a few films, written a few pieces, I've directed a one short. I'm getting ready to do another short that I've written, and I'm just waiting for the day where I can transition full time.
Freedom, I want to bring you on here tonight because we've worked in production, we've worked on set, we've worked in entertainment, okay? And you're very, very gifted, you're very talented, just like, the rest of the panelists tonight on the podcast. I've seen you, endure a lot. You're a single mom, and let us walk with you and kind of hear from your side. What was that like? What was your experience as a single mom and those challenges of raising a son or raising a child? What made you determined?
Okay, well, to kind of start off, I was a child that was raised in a very, very extremely abusive home, physical, mental, verbal neglect. And I have experienced, in and out of foster care, all of these things. And so when I finally left home, I left home and I was thankful that I wasn't on the street. I was blessed where I was living with some for a little bit, but eventually I kind of had to make some decisions, and I ended up at what's it called? Job Corps. Yes. So I ended up at Job Corps. It was either that or on the street. So I chose Job Corps. And you go from one situation and you really haven't. And I was in I went from a very isolated situation to kind of like dumped into. And when you're at Job Corps, everything everywhere is there, and I just was like this. How you look at the world from outside the glass, and like, wow, this is what's going on in the world. I was like eat popcorn, like this is life. These are people. So anyway, I met someone, and I always tell people that I really didn't have any concept of, okay, well, this is what I want to do. I want to go to college. I was extremely smart. But I didn't have any type of goals set. I really didn't even know what I wanted to do with my life. So I met someone who I felt, I think I like this person. I think I can be with this person for a long time. And we made this very, very conscious decision to have a child. Yeah. And I always tell people, no, it wasn't by accident. I was like, let's go ahead. It was, anyway, being young. And so once I was confirmed that I was pregnant. Here I was thinking I was with this person. We were going to be married. And of course, like every typical single mother, something happened. He got into some trouble. He ended up going to jail, and I was pretty much by myself. I didn't really have a close relationship with my mother. And I think when she did find out about it, her words were, well, you laid in your bed. You're grown now. Handle it. And that was it. So I was on my own, and I had to think really, really fast. And so I was thankful that the same family that had took me in when I ran away from home took me in for a little bit and allowed me to basically enough time to have my baby. And I literally already was thinking, okay, I need to, because it was words that were being said to say, okay, we'll help you, but you can't stay here. And so I was like, okay, I need a job. I had to think real quick. And so I was thankful that at the time when I was at Job Corps, an older woman had already spoken to me, even prior to me being pregnant, basically saying, hey, you really need to take advantage of the things that they're offering here. So I had already got my CNA license. So that allowed me to get a job. It allowed me to get a little apartment. And there started my journey of being a single mom. And I think when I was given the news that I was pregnant, when I was given the news, or when I realized I was going to be doing this by myself, I remember having a very this internal dialogue with myself, because it was really scary. It wasn't like I could go to someone's house, or it was just me. And so it was just Lord and God. I think I said a prayer, and I just said, well, Lord, I don't even know what's about to happen. I just ask you to protect me and my child. And I just was determined. I knew that we needed shelter. That was the first part. I knew that I was thankful that I had gotten my license. I knew we needed shelter. The first focus was, hey, I need an apartment. So I think for the first, so many years, it was just, I was in provide mode for my son.
As I thank you for sharing your personal story, and don't go anywhere, because I'm gonna come back to you and ask you some more questions. I'm about to go to wow, I'm at a loss. I never knew this. I've been knowing you for years, and I never knew. so strong. You're so refined. Don't go anywhere. I'm gonna go to Jeanie next, but as Freedom Smith was talking about those images that she saw growing up, though there may have been some positive, some may have been distorted images of relationships, of partners, of growing up. But what I heard most from what you said, Freedom, is that no matter what you experienced, no matter what you had to endure, no matter any of the challenges that you faced, that still didn't put a limit on God and His provision and His grace over your life.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's why you're here today. That's why you're here tonight.
Mm-hmm. No, I was going to say, and I wasn't raised in church. I just remember finding a book. It was a book that was, somebody gave us, gave me, as people give you clothes, and at the bottom of it there was a book. And it was kind of like a picture Bible. I didn't even know what it was, but I knew that I wanted whatever it was talking about. It talked about this man Jesus, and I just would, and it would tell you, all you have to do when you pray is talk to God, And so I didn't have a form of religion. I didn't have a church that we went to or anything. I just remember this book and being inspired that, man, whatever this is, I really want a part of this. And I just remember even going out, I just would always carry some of the things that I read in this book and have these conversations with this God, right, that I had learned from this book, and would be like, hey, if you'll just take me through here, or, well, God, what do I need to do? And, I don't really understand, of course, the Lord, I was able to get a better understanding. But for the most part, in the very beginning, I really didn't have I didn't have scriptures. I didn't know any scriptures or anything like that. I just knew what I learned in this picture book. And that was what carried me.
Don't go anywhere, Freedom. This is going to help so many people. Oh my goodness. Let me go to Jeanie Delascasas. Jeanie Delascasas, before I ask you to share your personal story, just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. There are so many gifted panelists here tonight, but kind of share with the listening audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I am I'm a writer, a single mom. I am a Navy veteran of 13 years. I was just accepted into nursing school at 47, but I am finally I'm there. I have the wisdom and that wisdom and that strength, because I've been over 25 years in the medical field, military and civilian. So and I'm an overcomer. I think that the core of us is that we are powerful, strong, and we are overcomers, children of God. So pretty much in a nutshell, that's who I am. A mother of two, single mom. So yeah, that's who I am.
What I love about you guys, about you ladies, about you women, is that when I listen to you, I imagine how it was when my grandmother was alive and when she was young and vibrant like you three. And, she made it to the rank of Medea. And it's so fascinating to me to share conversations with young ladies that are paving the way and trailblazing and going in that direction of becoming Medea. I mean, I love this feeling. I love this feeling because, come on, that's the rite of passage, especially in the African American community. Medea, once you make it to the rank of Medea, that's general status, right? You're like a 4-star general of the family. That's Medea. Whatever Medea says goes. All right, we're eating supper. We're eating at my dear's house on Sunday. I mean, that is the apex, right, of womanhood.
Yeah, she's the strength of the family. She's the strength of the family, and we all have our roles, the female and the male. And I was reading some stuff about the African family traditions a long time ago, and it said that the woman was pretty much the strength. The men had their part, but it was the woman who held down the household, which was the foundation of the family.
The matriarch. But you know what? That came with a lot of pressure. You can't tell me that didn't come with a lot of pressure, with a lot of crying behind the scenes. Behind the scenes. Can we talk about behind the scenes? Jeanie, Delascasas?
Yes.
Could you share with us your personal story?
Well, I became a single mom at 26. I was in the military. Before that, I was born and raised in Inglewood, Chatham area of Chicago, the Robert Taylors, and I've seen a lot. And my mom was a single parent of 5 kids. And, I asked her one time, I said, Mom, why, because I don't believe in abortion, but I asked her, I said, did you ever think about that? She said, no, never. So she raised us all by herself. We had hard times, lived in abandoned homes. In some place we lived in a project. I don't know if you guys ever seen the tall skyscraper projects in Chicago, but that was my home up until I was 13. Then we moved around to different places below the poverty level on a lot of places. But our family was strong. My father wasn't in the picture until I was, sad to say, we didn't have a relationship until I was 30. But I grew up in that. The way I got out of I dropped out of high school, and I also went to Job Corps. I went to Job Corps, 2 or 3 Job Corps. After I was 21, when I graduated, a couple of years afterwards, I went into the military. And while I was in the military at 26, I became a single mom. And it's a strong, in the military, there is a strong family support system, but still, I was doing it on my own. New single mom, I had siblings and other children around me, and I knew what to do, but it was still hard. It was still hard because I know you hear a lot that a woman say, I can do this on my own, I don't need a man. I would like to say I do not totally agree with that. God put a structure. Yeah. God put a structure in place, man, husband, wife, children. And when you talk about behind the scenes, when a woman is doing that on her own, and there's that man is not there, that strength, that to help raise the children, help build that home, you're becoming you're becoming mother and father at the same time. And that's not a burden that God wanted on a woman. I mean, he created Adam, and then he made a mate for him. He created Eve because he knew that pressure would be there. So nowadays, it's like, what is it, 75% now in the African-American community, it's like single moms. And that stress of being everything to that child, especially when you're raising male children. My son, I had a son when I was 26. And I don't know how to be a man. I don't know how to raise a man. So the only thing I knew how to do is to raise them in the shadow of in the Lord, with bring him up, teach him about God, being a decent person, being a noble person. But I didn't know how to raise a man. So, and there was tough stress, a lot of depression, a lot of crying nights when I cried out to God. And, I remember specifically God said, I will be his father. Yeah, and from then on, that strength, that core strength was still in me. But of course, we're human, so it was a battle. It was a battle.
I hear so much hidden powers. I hear so much grace and what you and Freedom have experienced as single parents. What you said tonight is preparing some and is comforting others. And what do I mean by that? It's preparing them with peace. It's comforting them with grace. And so these are, I believe, the values that are necessary for us to heal. And what I mean by healing, not just healing as single mothers, but healing as a community. Like I talked about some of the things that we have been enduring with mental wellness, mental health. And these are some of the triggers. These are some of because I believe mental illness is triggered by trauma. And when you go through or experience that phenomenon of trauma day in and day out, it begins to weigh on you. It begins to be a burden. It begins to be heavy on your mind. It begins to be a yoke on your shoulder. And so what you have said, what you have shared, both of you, what you have shared tonight is going to help so many. Let me go back. Let me go back to Freedom Smith. I call her Free. I actually call her Free because she's a very free-spirited person. Free, let me ask you something, because I know you learned some tools along the way. I know you have a survival kit that you put together that hopefully you can share with the listening audience tonight. And that would be a question I will have to ask you so that you could, share with us. Okay? So the question I want to ask you is, how did you ensure or how did you plan, right? And how did you plan successfully on your daily tasks to make sure you carried out your objectives for the day, for the week? How did you plan while still maintaining your motherhood, while still being a parent, while still raising a child? How did you plan even your self-care? How did you take care of yourself? How'd you do it?
Plan. I'm laughing because when you say plan, I'm like, man, was I planning? I don't,
Amen.
Right.
So it's like, you said plan, like there was, I feel like it was this ongoing metamorphosis. You just kind of morphed. Now, if I could, and now I'm saying this from a perspective.
Metamorphosis? Okay.
And when I said it, because I'm coming from the standpoint that I really had no support. I didn't have a mother or a father who was, picking up the kids or doing, it was just me. And so, and I didn't grow up with close friends because I was kind of going back and forth through foster care. So it wasn't like I had this support system. So I can't come from the standpoint of having someone tell me, well, Freedom, this is what, or this is how you do. I really didn't know. I can't, so I don't know if I feel like as the years went by, I feel like I'm going to say God placed me in areas that taught me things, or placed me with a person who would give me a little bit of nugget of wisdom, and I would take it. And like, okay, and it was just like, and that's why I said for me, it was always kind of like a metamorphosis into something else. It kind of morphed. It was, and so I was just going forward with the sole purpose of, I just wanted to make sure that I raised my son, and then I actually adopted another child, which was my son's cousin. And at that time, I just said to myself, Lord, I just want to raise decent human beings. That's all I really know. I want decent human beings who will love you if I train them, train them in church, even if, something happens, they'll have this foundation. And I wanted them to know that I love them, and I didn't want to raise them. And of course, in my back of my mind, I didn't want them to be raised to fear. How I was raised was very a fear-driven, very, very fear-driven. Like, you could move if the fear was so strong. I didn't want that in my house. So, and how was I able to act? There was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of trial and error, and then a lot of the Holy Spirit saying, "Don't do that." Okay, don't say that. Okay, and just trying to, so I can't. But what I can say for anyone that's out there that may be, but I feel like there are some single mothers who have, had a very, very, been through a lot of trauma, and now they're raising children, and it can be difficult when you've never had good examples. And so, the best thing that I knew, I did embrace counseling. I did embrace forgiveness and really taking some internal dialogue about what had happened to me, and not trying to push it under the rug and say, oh, I really just had to, take a moment sometimes and really journal out what had happened to me, all that had happened to me, and get to the point where I could not only just acknowledge this had happened, but also be able to forgive the parties, the people who had did the things that they had did to me. Because I didn't want to carry over that bitterness or these little mannerisms. I didn't want to carry that over and inadvertently pass those over to my own children.
I need to pull on you for this. How would you describe this whole conversation, this whole rapport, this whole experience? How would you describe this conversation thus far, and what we're talking about now? If you had a word to describe it, how would you describe it?
Overcomers. I would say overcomers. Just like them, I had never ever planned to be a single mom. That was the farthest thing from my mind, I grew up seeing, my grandparents in a very happy, loving relationship, raised 8 children. Now, of course, my parents were divorced when I was very young, and I said, oh, well, there's no way I'm doing that. When I get married, I'm going to have the 50th and the 60th wedding anniversary and all that. So it never occurred to me that wasn't going to happen, especially with the person. I had been with him since I was a teenager. He was my first love, my first boyfriend, my first everything. And he was just everything to me. And right after we got married, everything just kind of went crazy. And with me not having much experience or anything like that. And then soon after, I thought, hey, let's start a family, because that's the thing to do. And I had suffered 2 miscarriages back to back. On the third one, which was actually with my second husband, I thought, after going through the trauma of being divorced and everything that happened with that, we don't have time to hear that whole story. That's insane. I actually rushed into another relationship and got married without really knowing this person that well. And 6 months into it, I found out that he had an addiction to drugs and alcohol. Now, after already having the trauma of 2 miscarriages, I became pregnant again, and thinking that everything was going to go okay. Well, 6 months into it, something happened. I had complications. I was rushed to the hospital, had an emergency C-section, and the child died right after that. So here I am going through the whole heartbreak and trauma of a marriage, and then this, and thinking that everything was going to be okay while going through the whole pregnancy, knowing that this guy is, he's disappearing and he's on drugs and alcohol, and nobody told me and I didn't know, and now we're having a baby and hopefully everything's going to be okay. That was my mindset at the time. And then when it wasn't, then it was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? That was such trauma. That's been 26 years. And I can tell you right now that kind of pain never, ever, ever goes away. It never stops hurting. You just learn how to deal with it. Now, I did end up going through grief counseling after all of that, because it was such a traumatic thing with, being so excited, so happy that everything was going to be okay, because the furthest I had ever made it was like around 12 weeks, between 12 and 16 weeks. When I got past that threshold into the second trimester and heading towards the third one, I thought, oh, wow, everything's going to be okay. And when it wasn't, when everything just all of a sudden, you get up that morning and everything's great, you go to work, and then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, something's wrong. And then within a blink of an eye, your whole life is turned upside down. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I can't. You have to go through it to really understand it, because it's insanity, and it did weigh me down for a lot of years. I was at the point where I was even contemplating suicide, because I was so depressed for so long behind that and everything else that had happened. 2 marriages down the tubes. The miscarriages, the death, everything was just weighing me down, and it just got to be too much, to the point where everybody could see that, something's different about her. She's not, the person that she was happening. And actually, when I was going through the divorce process with the second marriage, the judge actually ordered me into grief counseling. Even she could see, and even from listening to me speak, she said, I hear you on the radio, and the person that I'm looking at right now, that's somebody else. That's somebody else. So I was actually ordered into grief counseling. I'm actually glad that I did. We've gone through a lot of death last year, and we're all going like as a family. So it does. You really don't. The pain doesn't go away when you go through a lot of trauma like that. You just learn how to deal with it in a different way. You don't let the depression consume you anymore. But from what I'm hearing from what everyone has said today is that, yeah, we're absolutely overcomers. We're overcomers. Despite everything that happened, we overcame it. I did eventually did have a son. He's grown up now. He's got his own son, and everything, it worked out in the end. And he's a strong person, and nothing like me. He's a strong person, and we made it. It was just me and him, and we made it. We did what we had to do. I wasn't really suffering like financially or anything like that. By the time he came around, I was a good planner. I was working, had a good job and all that. So he didn't go through any of that stuff that, we did growing up, and, the projects and all that, and being hungry. He never went through any of that. And, I'm just grateful for that. But yeah, we're all overcomers. Despite things that happened, we overcame it.
There's a glow on all 3 of you tonight. Listen, I feel it. I feel the glow. Let me pull from Jeanie. Let me pull from you real quick. As far as this conversation so far tonight, how would you describe this conversation thus far tonight? How would you describe it in your words?
I would describe it as powerful. When you were talking to Freedom about how she, planned it, I will have to agree with her. It's not something that we planned. We just had to, just like a warrior in a battle, we just had to fight. We have no other option but to do what God do what we had to do as moms, as fighters. And with God behind us and what we went through and what we've seen throughout our life, and in most cases, we knew that we didn't want that for our children, so we had to. We fought to give them the opposite of what we had. When I had my, I also had that dream of being a 2.5, having a husband, a family. A husband, a home, a dog, white picket fence. But it didn't work out for me. The first one, my second time around being a mom, I almost had that, but it didn't turn out. I got divorced. So I would say powerful.
And you're still alive. And you're still alive. And it's not it. This is not it.
No, it's
This is
not.
not
It's,
it.
yes, you're right.
This is
It's
not it.
Yes, I would have to agree.
This is not it. This is not it. This is not that, and that is not it. Listen, let me ask you. Thank you. Listen, ooh, this is so good. Lord have mercy. This is so good. Freedom, you've been transparent.
Yes.
I mean, you shared some interesting experiences that you had.
Yes.
But I need to pull on you a little bit deeper. Can I go further?
I'm kind of scared, but go ahead.
I know. I was like, ooh.
I know, right? I'm like, ooh, okay.
Okay, here it is.
Okay, here it is.
What are some of the fears that women have about mental illness?
I will have to say, and I may be wrong, but I would say not coming back. Crossing that threshold and not coming back to wholeness, sanity, happiness, joy. I will say not coming back.
That's so real. That's so real because I have it in my family. I have siblings that, and the type of patience, the type of long suffering. I would say it's really those fruits, those that love, God's love language is really tapped into as it relates to mental wellness in our community. So that's not just African Americans, that's Hispanic, that's white, that's Asian, you name it. But let me ask the same question too. Thank you for that response. That was bold. That was a very bold response. Let's just go around the panel. I want to ask the same question. What are some of the fears women have about mental illness? Who wants to take that next?
You see,
I can certainly take it next because I can tell you from my own experience was everyone finding out, everyone thinking something's wrong with me.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thing was, everybody's going to know and, everybody at church is going to know. Everybody's going to know that I'm crazy. That was the thing.
But my perspective is so different because I felt like everybody already thought I was crazy. And so, no, because I really had a lot of social type of, because I really, I hate to say socialized like I was a dog, but, if you spend your life not being around a lot of people socializing, you kind of come in like, I had a lot of social anxiety because I really didn't know how to, just walking across the room was excruciating for me. Looking at people in their eyes was just like, oh my gosh, it was terror. So for me, it was kind of, there was no, because I just wanted to find answers. I just was trying to figure out my life because I didn't know how to navigate, I did know how to navigate, but, when it came to social things or how people interacted with each other, I was really kind of, not at a, I wasn't able to really do it, I can say correctly, but I just struggled. So I went to counseling to kind of like, so I don't think I would have cared because like I said, I think people kind of was like, she's a little weird. She's a little, so I was trying to go to counseling to see if maybe there was a possible way to be normal, quote unquote, whatever that means.
Okay, Freedom, let me say this, and please don't take offense. What you just said to me is scary because when I see you, I don't see that. I mean, either you hide it very well, and maybe it's because of the love or whatever, and love covers a multitude of sins. No. But I don't see that. I just see you're gifted, you're talented, and it's when you're gifted like that, you're kind of weird. But
and that's me.
no,
That's
I
me
don't see
now.
that.
That's no. But see, that's me now. But when I was 20, and I'm, because you think when we talk about PTSD, when you've been in a physically violent home, and you've been isolated, and you basically, I didn't even know how people, I would talk and people would say, why are you muttering? I thought I was talking loud to my ears and people couldn't even hear me. There was a lot of things that I had to leave behind or what is the word I'm looking for, that I had to kind of fight through. I mean, like I said, I couldn't look people in the eyes. I used to walk around with my head down. I'd be looking at the concrete, because I just had this fear of looking at people or people looking at me. So there was a whole lot of things even though I had left my mother's home, there was a whole lot of things that carried with me.
I was, my episode came to the point where the doctor prescribed me medicine, and I took it one time, and I was like, no, I didn't like the way it made me feel. And so I had to go through it. I had to fight through it, and I had to rebuild myself spiritually, mentally. I had to go through the fire because I didn't want my senses numb. I mean, I had my daughter, taken away from me. My ex-husband, he petitions the court to get the modification, and they agreed with him. And so for 2 years, I mean, for just taking it back a little bit, 3 days I was in a behavior health ward because, could you imagine? I wish that on no body, man or woman. So exactly. I went to I have to tell you, I went to the 7th layer of hell. I would walk past my daughter's room. It's all beautiful. She's not there. And that's my baby. So I had the medication. I didn't take it. I had to fight. When I say it, as far as not coming back, I had to fight not to go over that, because my children was dependent on me. So you have to rebuild yourself. You have to fight. You have to.
That's good.
It's a lot, yeah.
I want you to talk about that because, listen, I'm telling you, we're connected to you. We are connected to you. You are we're on the journey with you. Listen, you are helping. Let me tell you what you, oh, Lord, let me tell you what I see. And this is why you got to finish. I see you as an eagle, a mother eagle, okay? And the thing about an eagle is, an eagle has claws. And those claws are used to go and snatch those little eaglets and bring them back while they're falling. There are some people that's listening to this podcast right now that are falling into darkness, that are falling into dreary places of uncertainty. They don't have any way out. And they're going to hear what you just said. We need you to help them lift their head up.
I will. Okay.
Pull them in.
I did kind of gloss over it. I don't know how much time you have, but I would try to go fast. But so when I had my second child, I was married at the time. My husband, when she was 8 months, he left us. My son was 12. We were living in Indiana. He went to Seattle and went with another woman. So he was working. I wasn't. I was taking care of the home. When he left, excuse my language, but all hell broke loose. I was going through postpartum depression. I was just, just a lot. And then after that, for a while, for about 6 or 8 months, we was in a homeless shelter. And when I was in a homeless shelter, I was working, but still it wasn't enough to, do what I needed to do as far as get a home and stuff like that, take care of my babies. But while I was there, I got a call from the homeless shelter. The women there asked me if I want to tell my story about a single mom, Navy veteran. I said, sure. So I told they asked me, do I want to tell it on the Steve Harvey show? I was like, is this a trick question? So I told my story. I went to the Steve Harvey show And they presented us with a home, a townhome, and my family was there. We were there for a while, for a year. And then during that time, my son went to a camp for Steve Harvey's camp, where I met a lot of beautiful single moms, and they pampered us, and we told our stories, and that's when I wrote my first book, Brokenness Together. And so everything was going well for a couple of years. I skimmed over that. Everything went well for a couple of years, but it was hard trying to find a job, trying to put everything together. And when my daughter was 5 years old, we finally got a nice place out here in Joliet. That's when I got the papers in the mail that my ex-husband wanted to fight for custody. So we went to court. I didn't have a lawyer. He had a lawyer. It was Indiana, and they decided it was him. So my daughter is now, at that time, she was almost 6. I got the letters in the mail. My world fell apart. It felt like my foundation was just taken from me. I was slowly going down a dark path. And I remember laying in bed, and it was like darkness was just closing in on me. And I haven't prayed to God. I didn't talk to God because I was kind of mad at him. And I heard him say, "Speak to me, talk to me." And I slid from my bed, and I talked to him. I told him what was going on in my life, what was going on. I mean, I knew he knew, but that's when I started opening up to God and talking to him. But my daughter was taken from me. And like I said, I was putting on pills because I went through depression. I even thought about suicide. And so while I'm there in the hospital, they're talking to us, and they're trying to help us, get through it. The last day I came home, and I remember specifically the Lord said, "I will fight your battles. I will fight your battles." Because I had so many things I wanted to do. I wanted revenge somehow, some way, but I didn't have the power. He had all the power. So that's when I had to change, metamorph, to get pull strength from anywhere I could, except for the medicine. I talked to my family. I talked to the Lord. I spent time in Scripture, and no matter what, He never allowed that vengeance that was in me manifest. I still prayed for my ex-husband. 2 years later, kind of cut through that, but if you guys have questions, of course. 2 years later, my ex-husband got a divorce. He was going through the divorce. He couldn't fight. I got me a lawyer. He couldn't fight 2 battles. And he said, "I give up custody. I give it up. You take her."
You about to say that.
2 years later, she was back in my home.
The way I described it was I felt like I was jumping out of my body every day. It's weird. It's hard to explain, but I felt like I was jumping out and walking in front of it instead of actually inside of it. It was just the weirdest thing. But if you feel like, you have like an overabundance of anxiety, if you're nervous and you're scared, there's nothing wrong with getting help. There's nothing wrong. The thing I found out about a lot of churches is that they have a lot of people who are willing to listen to all your problems, but they may not be qualified, to actually help you. And that was one of the things that I went through, where I had somebody who was actually, I'm thinking about killing myself, and I had a person reading from a card talking to me on a prayer line. I said, are you reading something? But don't be afraid to reach out and get professional help. You'd be surprised. It's not what you think. They're not going to be looking at you, pointing the finger, saying, "Oh, you're crazy. This is what you got to do," and shoving pills down your throat. It's not like that. I mean, people think all kinds of things about getting counseling, and that's why they're reluctant to do it. But please reach out and get professional help if you need to.
This was another impactful night. And in fact, let's get Felicia. Guests tonight were Freedom Smith, Jeanie, Delascasas, and the lovely Miss Nina Taylor. So proud of you, ladies. Good night.